This is Carl Munson of Expats Portugal, and this is number 8 of 1,000 things to enjoy in Portugal. Madeira is one of the 2 autonomous regions of Portugal, the other being the Azores, and is an archipelago situated in the North Atlantic Ocean. Around 250 miles north of the Canaries and 320 miles west of Morocco, Madeira has a population of just under 300,000, and the capital, Funchal, is found on the main island's south coast. Prized for a very mild subtropical climate, Madeira has constantly proven itself a popular year-round resort, attracting nearly 1.5 million annual tourists. Claimed by Portugal in 1419 and settled a year later during the Age of Discovery and the adventures of Henry the Navigator, visitors love Madeira for its history, food, flora and fauna, and of course, its eponymous wine. Hola, bon dia. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show from expatsportugal.com. I don't know if you saw there. Always nice to be able to use the word eponymous. There's our short for Madeira, which I think we'll return to tomorrow, Thursday, here on the Good Morning Portugal show. It's our places and spaces day on Thursday. But today, Wednesday, what would that be? Terça-feira, 3 Janeiro 2021. There you go. For people who need a date stamp on the show to make sure they're not watching an old episode from back in August, as happened earlier this week. Terça-feira, 3 Janeiro 2021, for you who need the date stamp there. And yes, it's Ask Anything About Portugal today on this Wednesday here. And I have a very special guest to bring onto the screen who's been a correspondent in the comments up to now, but here he is in person. Andy the Doc Thompson is here, everybody. Hi, Andy. Good morning to you. Bon dia.
Hi, Carl. Bom dia, Deliria, and it's lovely to be here.
Oh, I like it. You're throwing a bit of Portuguese in there already, and it is, of course, quarta-feira, as has been pointed out by Nick. Were you cringing as I was trying to struggle for the day of the week in Portuguese there, Andy, or did you not notice that?
Oh, I do it all the time. I'm counting my head from Sunday, and so I sympathise.
That's the thing, isn't it? Monday is Segunda, of course, the second day of the week in a Catholic country. Terça was yesterday. I was just seeing if everybody was awake, and clearly Nick Steinman was, I think, in London. Carolyn is here in Moscow, I think, still, saying, hi, Andy. Obrigado, bon dia, Carl. It was Owen, actually. Bon dia, Carl, and bon dia, Doc.
We know each other.
Oh, cool. Okay, fantastic. It was Owen that wanted the day of the week just to improve on the Portuguese vocabulary, but it's also useful to know the day of the week occasionally, isn't it, as an expat? Elsa Riley, hola, bon dia. Rainy weather in North Wales today. We will have a look at the Portuguese weather. Andy will have a specific input from Leiria this morning, but looking out the window. No stopping it for 3 days in North Wales. It's winter in Wales. Of course, it's raining. Zoom at 9:15, so only with you for part of the show. And Catherine Nichols is here in New York, I believe. Bon dia, Carl. Lovely international audience we've got here. Yeah, an obrigado from Owen and from San Martino de Porto this morning. Valerie, good morning. Very cold again this morning, but also very beautiful. I bet it is in the bay there. No idea what's going on. You're in good company here. Yet another announcement made yesterday. So what exactly is the situation? Did you say to ask anything? So guessing you know. That's unkind and unfair, Valerie. But we'll do our best between me and Andy here. Bon dia from Victoria Benson in the United States. Hank Stalica, good morning, friends from California. This is fabulous. Just a quick hello from a sunny but chilly Castanera de Pera off to the beach. It was a left block salute there for you, Hank, from Andy. Peter's off to the beach for a walk and shopping before lockdown. That's a funny thing. I think loads of people are going out today before lockdown. That's not what we're meant to be doing, but I can understand why people are. And Zalminyai Ansari, a new name, hi from Dubai. Look at that. We have people in Dubai this morning as well. So, Andy, Ask Anything About Portugal is our feature this morning. You're here. You have a story to tell about your journey coming into Portugal. Could you tell us how you get to be here? You are reporting live from Leiria this morning. How are you? And how did you get to be here?
Thank you, Carl. I'm very well. Well, long story short, so 35 years ago, I decided I was going to retire to Portugal. Roll forward to 2016 when I had a stroke, and so ended up retiring early as a GP and bringing my retirement date 10 years forward. So I came over here 2 years ago and started to establish myself in Coimbra. Got my various bits of paperwork, or the bits I thought I needed at the time, and then ended up traveling around the world to pick up a very fast wheelchair. Came back, ended up acquiring a new partner who said, when I said I have to be back in Portugal, I'm going out to Portugal to live. She said, right, I'm going to retire and come with you. But
Right.
this meant, because she had a 14-year-old daughter, that we had to relocate to somewhere that had an English medium school. So we're here in Madeira, which is great, because one of my passions is castles. I have a great castle. Another one is rivers, and we live 50 yards from the river. And of course, we're only 40 minutes drive from the sea, which is another of my great passions. So yeah, it's a great place to be.
Wow. So you have a lot of perspectives to speak from there. Being a disabled person or a person with a disability, however, whichever way you look at it, the social model or not, in Portugal, having a relationship and a new relationship in Portugal, because that's often a big test for expats, isn't it? Having a teenage child in the house who's gone into the education system. So lots going on for you. And of course, being in Leiria as well, that's to me, it's a beautiful city, town, but one that's it's got so much going for it, and not a lot of people, I think, know about Leiria. They know about Silver Coast, obviously, central Portugal, the Algarve, and a few other places, that they might have gone to as a tourist. But Leiria's got so much going for it from an expat point of view. So we'll maybe eke a little bit more out of you about Leiria as the show progresses. We do have questions coming in, which is fantastic. Valerie reminding me, I'm never unkind, only when I'm freezing me whatsits off. So that might be today, as it turns out. None meant, Valerie. Hello from Thailand. Where can I find the best investor for a 280,000 Portuguese golden visa property? Says Curtis in Hayamoto from Thailand. Probably not from me. Have you got that stuff down the back of the sofa, Andy?
No. But I think maybe he's asking where he can find the best properties. I think he's asking that.
Okay. Tell us more, Curtis.
And if that's the case, I have a link to a property guy who does a lot reporting from Portugal about where good properties are for the golden visa. So if you, I'm trying to remember it, and I can't right now, but if you contact me through Expats Portugal, then where I think I'm down as Andy the Doc, but I might
think
be
you are.
different. Carl will tell you. Contact Carl if you can't find me, and I'll get you the link.
I'll be Andy's gatekeeper. You're used to that from being a GP, aren't you? To having the special breed of person that is the receptionist in a GP practice. I'll play that part for you. But it's a good shout. That go to expatsportugal.com. To join up with our community. And we need to know more about your question there, Curtis. It might be that you have the other, you're thinking that there's 500k needed for the golden visa. You have 220 of it and you need the other 280. Of course, remember, Valerie's here in the Silver Coast. If you invest in the outback of Portugal, as it's known, you only have to invest 350,000. So you're only a little bit short, by the sound of it, with the budget that we think you might be talking about, Curtis. But tell us more. Michelle van der Eken is here. Hello, friends from Alcobaça, minus 1.5 this morning. I don't think we need to do the weather. People are telling us, which is fantastic. What's it like in Leiria this morning, Andy?
Beautifully sunny. I had my normal cup of coffee in the on the balcony, and it's currently -1, but it doesn't feel like it in the sun.
Very good. Okay, that's ritual. So you've made the transition from tea to coffee, have you, as a proper Portugueser now?
I made the transition from tea to coffee when I left home, I think. You need when you have to wake up at ridiculous time to go and work on the wards, you find coffee as your friend.
Of course, yes, ahead of that curve. And we will be talking about curves, flattening curves and so on, because we'll get your view on how Portugal has handled the pandemic, of course. We can't overlook that. Michelle Castro Vieira, bon dia todos, from a rainy Nottingham. See another weather report there. Louise is, I think, in the UK. Bon dia. Solo 50 plus expat Portugal. Subscribe. Elsa Riley in North Wales. My question. Here we go, Andy. Got a question to deal with. My question: when a property is up for sale, accepting a large portion in payment and a small payment in monthly amounts each month, how does that work? And is it available to expats? Now, I think in the current economic climate, that is a proposition that's coming up. And sometimes it's converting rent to mortgage. So I know that some Portuguese landlords have said, look, you pay me so much a month in rent, and if it comes to it, we can turn that into a kind of mortgage payment and you can just pay me the balance. Now, this will, of course, I think, rely on the cooperation of good legal people and going into a bulletproof agreement with that landlord. Have you heard anything about this for Elsa there, Andy?
I've come across it not just in Portugal, elsewhere when I've been looking at property. It's called vendor financing, basically, and it can be, it ought to be watertight, but many people go into handshake arrangements, many of which might not work, and some of which, if you're lucky, will do. But yeah, my advice is get it tied up with the lawyer. Keep it friendly but formal. And it can work, but it varies from vendor to vendor. Some will be open to it and some won't. But mortgages in Portugal are very low price at the moment if you can if you can prove a decent credit history.
Very good, thank you. So yes, keep it, what was it you said there? Keep it friendly but formal. That's quite good advice, I think, or very good advice. Yeah, especially in a new place.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're renting, but we will be looking to buy when the when we're not tied to a certain distance from a school, and B, when the lockdown's over, I think.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's really helpful. Marcos Valbon is here from the north of Portugal. Hello, Carl. Speaking about the weather next week, we're going to have a big storm in the north of Portugal. Well, thank you for that good news, Marcos. You're always welcome. There we go. Lockdown begins tonight at midnight. And I think Valerie's right. We're still a little bit unclear exactly how it's going to be. A lot of people are anticipating at least 2 weeks, possibly a month, to stop people associating and getting together for the carnival, I think in February. And it's going to be a lot like the first lockdown back in the spring of 2020. Have you heard anything along those lines, Andy? Are you keeping a keen eye on that?
Yeah, I've been reading the news as it comes out, and I think that's broadly right. It looks as if they're probably going to keep schools open from the age of 12, but I think face to face, but that's yet to be decided. I think Portugal's handled the pandemic well up until this point, but we're seeing a spike which we probably didn't expect, given the fact that generally people have behaved in an exemplary way in Portugal, unlike in the UK. But I think that's probably about leadership more than anything else. But I don't think Portugal could have handled the pandemic any better, really.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that insight. And of course, Andy the Doc here, Thompson, who we met in the comments, and now he's on screen, and I'm hoping he'll be a regular from time to time here with us. I don't think it's fair to ask him individual specific questions about ingrowing toenails and hemorrhoids and that sort of thing, not least because it's breakfast time, everybody. But those sort of general things are absolutely fine. And I'm surprised that Will Thompson isn't here, who has been a very passionate correspondent on the pandemic and COVID. And we'll come back to some of the things that Will's been suggesting, that are things that we can do for ourselves, sort of taking responsibility for our health. Andy, if you don't mind, a little bit later on.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's get through these questions. We've got Nick Steinman saying he's showing off with his Portuguese here. A família da minha esposa mora em Leiria. So Nick knows Leiria from the wife, the spouse there, living or coming from Leiria. Thank you for that, Nick. My question from Chu on Facebook. This is my question. When are the stores and cafes starting to close in Lisbon? So that'll be from tonight, I think, Chu. Midnight tonight, going into the lockdown tomorrow, Thursday, quinta-feira. I'll get it right on this occasion. And yeah, a lot of cafes will be operating a takeaway service, but life as we know it, and obviously cafe life in Lisbon is a crucial part of the culture that we love, will be changing for at least a couple of weeks, probably a month. And we'll keep you informed here on the Good Morning Portugal show, and obviously in the forum. We'll be keeping a close eye on that in the forum at expatsportugal.com. Make sure you sign up there. There is a free entry level so that nobody need be excluded from that, as long as they've got access to the internet, of course. Eric, bon dia, Andy, from Eric the Chicken Doc in Willingham. Is this a friend of yours, Andy?
No, not yet.
A friend you haven't made yet. Nice one. So the chicken doc is among us. Everybody, good morning to you. Good morning all from John Smith. Good morning to you, John Smith. And Hank says, where the question's coming in, ask anything about Portugal. I think I've got a ticker tape for that. Here we go. Yeah, seriously, ask anything about Portugal. Hashtag #AAP. Where would be a good central place for new expats to land so they can explore the majority of the country? In other words, where would be a good place to set up a home base? I've got a great answer for this. I'm sure you have too, Andy. You know of a rather nice city in central Portugal, don't you, that was part of your original plan?
I do. I think you could do a lot worse than Coimbra. Coimbra has got the oldest extant operating university in Europe. It's got a fantastic history. It's got lots of culture. It's very central on the motorway and the rail network. One of the reasons why I was drawn to Coimbra originally was that it's on the high-speed rail link, north-south. So if you don't want to drive everywhere, then that's a good alternative option. An hour into Lisbon, an hour into Porto, 3 or 4 hours down to the Algarve. And exceptionally inexpensive on the train, especially if you buy early tickets, or you benefit from the incapacity documentation that I have.
I've got to ask you, you use a very snazzy wheelchair. We were talking about it before you came on air, based on the Segway technology. And when I get on and off trains in Portugal with a pram, the pram of my children, I wonder how people manage to get up that 6 foot of steps onto a train in Portugal. How is that for you?
So the only trains I can use are the high-speed trains, and that's because they have, in one carriage on every train, they have a wheelchair lift. So it's a platform that comes down, it folds out of the doorway, it comes down to platform level. I drive my wheelchair on, and then it picks me back up. The chair I have is slightly wider than a normal chair, so it's a little bit hairy. Anyone who's ridden a Segway who knows if it gets stuck that it starts to vibrate a lot. So that's a bit amusing. It tends to concern onlookers more than it does me, but yeah, we haven't come to any harm with it, and yeah, it works very well. But now I've got the car over here. I do tend to use the car, and I couldn't use the trains in Leiria because they're not the high-speed train with that lift.
Oh, good to know. Okay, and there might be other people watching who remember an event where a man in a wheelchair was vibrating, stuck in the corridor of a train. That would have been Andy on his Segway. With an amusing look on his face, possibly. Well, okay. Well, thank you for that, and I do agree massively with you. Coimbra is the ultimate base camp, and it's not going to be long now until hopefully the mayor of Coimbra will be inviting us to lunch. With the amount of big ups we give to Coimbra, I think it's an amazing base camp. Hank, that would be our recommendation to you. It's got so much going for it. Yeah, as Andy says, the academic background. It's got an incredible tradition and history, but it's also got a really nice approach to modern life. It's a bit kind of hipster and modern.
And I have to mention the burning of the ribbons. I can't remember the Portuguese phrase, which takes place every year among the students, when it seems the only object is for the breweries to dispense huge amounts of free beer, much of which ends up going down students' throats, but quite a lot of it ends up running down the streets. Honestly, I have never seen so much beer. And I was a medical student, of course, and so it's a great time.
That's saying something. When a ex-medical student says, "I've never seen so much beer," you have to believe that. So for us, Hank, we're saying Coimbra, and we will find out what time of year that the beer is flowing freely. Maybe if Sara Cruz is here. Yeah, check out her videos as well. She's part of our Ask Our Expats team. On the expatsportugal.com website, and she produces beautiful virtual tours on video now, of course, with the restrictions. And when the time comes, she will be your personal guide to Coimbra. Grew up there. She just knows it like no one else does. Next question then, Catherine Nichols in New York, or has been in New York. Will the upcoming lockdown include government facilities, SCF? I imagine it will. And as we've experienced before, they will deal with you via email, and they will also, I think, factor in delays. I've from all the anecdotal stories I've heard, aren't all stories anecdotal anyway, from all the information I've picked up of people's personal experiences, they have taken on board the delay. They're not being overly bureaucratic about this. They understand there's a world situation, a national situation, and they are taking kindly to people's personal circumstances. Anything to add to that, Andy, about dealing with SCF and some of the bureaucracy in Portugal?
No, I think that's right. When we came over in August, and both Leona and her daughter had to get residence and tax numbers and all the rest of it, they were incredibly helpful at the local Camara, SCF, social services, social security. All of them were brilliant. The one I still have trouble with is the driving license stuff, but so I'm going to be out of time for that, and I'm quite prepared to accept that I might end up with a minor criminal record for not having registered my license in time, but that's small stuff.
You're not alone with that, are you? It's the IMT, isn't it, where you have to go. This is what the situation was for British people, was to exchange their British licenses. You imagine that your British driving license got a picture of the Queen on it or something. People are so attached to them, but you're meant to go and exchange it. And I think similarly, Andy's Josh in there. I think, although you probably might get a minor criminal record in Portugal, I don't know. You just never know until it happens. But I think, like the rest of the offices, they are, viewing this situation. We're all in this together, and they are making allowances. It's just that the IMT, in my experience too, Andy, are especially austere sometimes, aren't they, with how they respond? Okay. Elsa says, Elsa Antonio Barbuda, which is a very enigmatic name for a realtor, I think. It sounds like that's who Antonio is. Has properties on his books for those sorts of figures. That's going back to our earlier inquiry from Curtis in Thailand. Other realtors are available. Bon dia from Anna Rita Vieira this morning. Good morning to you. Another one of our Ask Our Expats team saying bon dia a todos, and obviously can help us from a Portuguese point of view this morning. Ruta Arnobio, I can't see that, sorry, but Ruta, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello from Porto this morning. Tell us about Porto, won't you, Ruta? Fellow Brummies here. Here is another Peaky Blinder. It's Gary Garvo Austin, who I think...
Right, mate.
It had to be said, and only you two are allowed to do it. Bon dia, Carl and Doc. A balmy 10 degrees here in Brixham in the UK. We're not keen on that sort of information. When the bragging rights about weather switch around to the UK, we really shouldn't read things out like that. Good morning, Gary Austin. Oh, Will is here. That's great, Will. Good to see you here this morning. And glad to hear that you're your visit from the dog shelter yesterday went well, and they could see, as the rest of us could see, that you love Frankie the dog, and he's on his way to his permanent home quite soon, which I imagine will be quite difficult for you. So bless you, Will, for looking after Frankie and passing with flying colours with your what looked like an inspection yesterday. Cascais 5 degrees at 8 this morning, says Anna. Question coming in from Craig Brown: for relocating, is it better to enter Portugal as a Spanish resident or as a third country national? This is a great question. Did you have anything? This is a very specific one. What would you say on that, Andy, if I can drop you right in it there?
Yeah, my understanding of that would be that as an EU resident, you have the right to come and live in Portugal anyway, and therefore you would fill out paperwork as an EU citizen. If you're now coming in from Britain, then I think that's going to be more complex. I'd have to do more research, but my gut reaction is that it's better to enter as a Spanish resident.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. The only difficulty you're going to face there is mentioning the word Spanish or Spain in Portugal. But apart from that, it should be fine. And of course, as a resident in Spain, you will continue to enjoy the rights of the EU arrangement and the not the common market, but the common agreement. You know, the beauty of freedom of movement in Europe, which now, of course, if you are a British person, you will have lost and you'll have become a third country national. So I'm with Andy on this, and I would agree that I would start with being a Spanish resident, which it sounds like you are, and using your right to free movement across the EU to come into Portugal, Craig. That will be the suggestion. And of course, go to the business directory, expatsportugal.com, if you want a proper professional view on that from Gilda and the team at EI Migration Services. You can find them in our business directory. Carmen Souza, 15 degrees grey and rainy in Genetas, Azores. How lovely to hear from the Azores this morning. Fantastic. The Portuguese spelling there, of course. The Brits call it the Azores. And I think a better pronunciation of that is Azores. Ruti is up in there in Porto. It will be 1 month since you've been there. I'm still sure you've got a lot of great things to say about Porto based on that. And here is we've got the doc with us. Here's a sort of a people's prescription for dealing with the lockdown. Stock up with loo rolls, vino tinto and gin. You're ahead of me there, Chris. But yes, that's exactly what my little shopping list looks like. Obviously, what about you, Andy? I'm guessing you're encouraging people not to panic buy.
Well, certainly I don't think we need to be carting mountains of loo rolls down the street in shopping trolleys, but I'm with you on the vino tinto and the gin.
Okay, absolutely. Great question, Will. We will come back to that in a sort of more general sweep about taking some sort of personal responsibility as far as COVID and the pandemic goes. We'll come back to that. Our main theme is Ask Anything About Portugal, which we're doing, but we'll absolutely come back to that, Will. Curtis says, following up from my earlier question, for properties that are 30 years old or older and located in low density areas of Portugal, it's 20% off. I see. Okay, wow. So it gets better and better, the golden visa situation by the sound of it. Gary, I've heard reports that the COVID virus is entering through people's eyes. What's everyone's thought on that? I presume that's just one of the many ways of reception transmission, is it not, Andy?
Yeah, it's an upper respiratory tract virus, and therefore enters through what we call the mucous membranes, which is the lining of the mouth and nose. But the eye has a communication with the nose called the lacrimal duct, which is why your nose runs when you cry, because the tears drip through into the nose. So yes, it could enter the body through the eyes that way. I'm not sure if there's another way through. Of course, there's very thin lining to the eye socket, so that's possible, but there's certainly a route through what we call the lacrimal duct. So yeah, that's
an amazing bit of sort of pub quiz style information. Why does your nose run when you cry? which I don't know. This is a little bit of a deviation, but it happened to me last night. You get to a certain age as a man, or some do, and you find yourself tearing up a bit more than you used to in your younger days. Are you nodding your head, Andy? Do you get that?
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
Oh,
I think we just get a bit more sensitive, don't we?
I hope so. I hope so. And I tell you what started it last night. I watched an old episode of Hill Street Blues, like an 80s cop drama, and the music came on and took me back to when I used to watch it as a teenager, sort of learning about the world, learning about America, learning about cops in America, learning about human relationships, looking at Joyce Davenport in bed with Captain Furillo and thinking, wow, lucky fella. Those sorts of memories were coming up, and it was really, really moving. And now I know why my nose was running as well. So thank you so much. Anyone else remember Hill Street Blues this morning?
Yeah, and Carl, be careful out there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And then it cuts to the music, which went straight to my heart. I don't know, and I was thinking to myself, does everybody have this? And I just thought, yeah, you get to a certain age and certain very evocative memories of your formative years will hit you like a juggernaut in the chest, like it did with me. Anyway, enough of my emotional state. If your Portuguese language is limited, this is a great question from East London Kiwi. How difficult is using services like doctors, hospitals and dentists, etc., specifically in central or Porto areas? How is your Portuguese, Andy, and how would you answer that one?
My Portuguese, not being a linguist, is appalling, but slowly getting better. In Coimbra, I had no problem finding English-speaking people in the various services I accessed. In Leiria, it's not quite as good, well, good or bad. I'd rather not have lots of English around because I want to be forced to learn the language. But yeah, there's not so much... English is not as ubiquitous in Leiria as it certainly is in Coimbra. Coimbra was fantastic, and if you're looking at where to go from that perspective, I couldn't fault it.
Yeah, I think medics, vets, professionals, I mean, as part of their training, they're learning a lot in English, aren't they? It would appear.
Many of them have gone to practice briefly in the UK or in America in order to get experience. Yeah,
absolutely. And the notable celebrated case, of course, one of the nursing team for Boris Johnson was a Portuguese nurse, right? So you needn't worry too much there. But if you stick to Porto, Lisbon or Coimbra, you're not going to have a problem there. East London Kiwi. I hope that helps. Let's go to Matthew. This is a great question. Bon dia. How do expat retirees fill their days in Portugal? Well, we have the first hour covered. From 9 a.m, any sensible expat is tuned into the Good Morning Portugal show, adding their 2 penneth, and it makes a refreshing change from reading the Daily Mail for an hour. I like to think anyway, or do both. Not get balance in your life. And on that matter, I do believe the Daily Mail is still available in the Algarve post Brexit, so that will come as a relief to some people. But do you see this as a problem? I mean, some people fear retirement, don't they, Andy, or being an expat in a new country? What's your immediate response to this, apart from having a bit of a giggle?
I find lots to do. I mean, apart from sitting, drinking coffee, eating tostas, watching pretty girls go by, etc., watching old episodes of Hill Street Blues or similar. But there is loads to do. I mean, I love old buildings. I will drive out and find a place and just explore. But there's plenty of culture. When there's no lockdown, there's lots of culture. There's sport. There's all sorts of things to do. I sometimes find myself wondering how on earth I found time to work.
Yes, that's a really good way of looking at it. So there you go, Matthew. There's so much to do. I mean, I've just embarked on this video short series on YouTube, 1,000 things to do and enjoy in Portugal. And I've no concerns at all about the amount of material. It started off as 100, which was ridiculous. And I just thought this has got to be 1,000, and it will go to 10,000 ultimately. It's, you know, it's a book in there. There are so many wonderful things to do in Portugal. And I think, like Andy says there, you will wonder how on earth and why people go to work when there's so much to enjoy in life, especially over here in Portugal. So I hope that helps for you. Sandra Marks Webster, bon dia. How are the COVID-19 vaccinations going on in Portugal? I don't know the answer to that. I haven't been called in. What say you, Andy? You're probably more attuned to that than me.
I looked at the plan when it came out. I'm supposed to be part of the first wave, but I haven't had my appointment yet. But I understand that vaccinations are going well in terms of the numbers vaccinated. It's getting out there, so I think it's going all right.
Okay, going okay. A message in Portuguese now. This always throws me because this could mean anything.
I can tell you that is the burning of the ribbons that takes place at the end of the academic. Is it the end or the beginning? At the end of the academic year. So yeah, we have Freshers Week at the beginning of the year. They have the Queima das Fitas at the end of the academic year. So it's around about, I don't know, June or July sometime.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that is a reflection of the Portuguese work ethic, is it? So the Brits just get drunk straight away before they've started doing any work, and the Portuguese wait until they've done some work. Very good, Portugal. Marcos Valbon Algarseco and Benagil Cave as well. These are things to add, I think, to our list of 10,000, 100,000 things to do in Portugal. Awaiting their final decision. So that means delay. I think you can assume safely that there will be delays now in Portugal with any of the sort of governmental processes. Well, anything to do with, you know, normal daily life in Portugal will slow down. Some say even more in the coming days with the lockdown. But as I said before, Catherine, don't let your head drop too much. Keep your chin up, because the Portuguese bureaucracy, government, local government will be well disposed, I think, to your predicament. So not long to go now, Catherine. We'll get there. Don't worry. We've been trying to contact CEF for 2 months. I don't think they. There you go. There's a personal perspective, Kathleen. That's the same Kathleen I think I'm in email contact with. Let me know if it is Kathleen, economist, who I absolutely want to talk to you maybe next Tuesday if you're free, about the economy in Portugal. And if it is you and the same, you were I think a little bit miffed about some of us who were harking back to the agrarian days of Portugal, perhaps a little bit unrealistically, and being a little bit critical of the EU superstate. Would love to have that conversation with you, Kathleen, and thank you for that input there. John Smith says Coimbra is great. Great suggestion for Hank. Is Evora worthy of consideration? Ever been over to Evora, John? Ever been over to? That's quite a sentence to try and say. Ever been over to Evora, Andy?
No, not yet. It's on the list. We'd have been there if COVID hadn't continued. So
Indeed.
not yet. We haven't.
Capital of Alentejo, another. I mean, talk about Leiria being overlooked as a possible place to go in Portugal. Alentejo district, the same. Évora, the capital, can get very, very hot there. If you're somebody who doesn't want too much heat, probably Évora is not the place to go. And also very cold, actually, very extreme temperatures there. Will, talking about the eyes. It's very specialist, as we've come to expect from Will, who really does his homework. Also, autopsies are not revealing incursion of virions, is that, into the brain via the optic nerve, which is highly indicative that eyes are not a major issue, but feel free to wear sunglasses just in case. Every little helps. Thank you for that. Hank and Gary got a proper bromance going on in the comments, which is lovely to see. Bon dia from Ericeira, where I'm hoping to get a new hot water heater and need a shower. I'll confide in you that I turned the hot water on, allegedly called. I use the term hot loosely. I think it was too cold to have a hot shower for me this morning. So here I am, just had a rinse, as my Uncle Raymond used to say. Good luck with that, Gail, and good morning to you. Bon dia from the Alentejo, the man himself, who we call, you can call me Al. Alentejo, Neil Perkins, bon dia to you, Neil, as well. Yes, while we're there, because Neil we know from the wine club, I'm going to be sharing a fizz, a Fita Azul, with you tomorrow night. A really nice reserva fizz from Portugal. I was thinking, we're going into the lockdown. Let's party as best we can. So a fizz does, hopefully we'll do the biz tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on the Wine Club. Karaman Souza, another question for us, Andy. Do you know if farmers markets will be open as usual during lockdown, or perhaps abbreviated hours? And of course, the Azores, San Miguel Azores, will have its own approach, I think, a sort of sub-approach. But lockdown last time, Andy, were farmers markets and the markets open, do you remember?
I don't. I wasn't here during the early months of lockdown last year. I guess it depends on whether they're indoor. Possibly depends on whether they're indoors or outdoors. Our market here in Madeira is the farmers market is indoors, but there's a sort of overflow into the stadium car park, which is very well controlled regarding masks. But until the order comes out later today, I guess we won't know whether they're going to be open or not.
We'll keep an eye on that, Carmen. Will, thank you again. I think what we'll do is we'll conclude the show today with some, what we can do from a personal responsibility point of view to really look after ourselves and our nearest and dearest. That's probably a good way to conclude today and bring all those questions together. Will, bon dia, Carl. Prosecco Peggy's in the house. Yes, ahead of me on the fizz. I'm waiting till 9 tomorrow. Peggy's already started. Sunshine and blue skies from the Algarve. Thank you for that weather report. Julia, I think in Italy, Santa good morning. Buongiorno to you. Another beautiful morning in Celanova, Alcobaça. Just wear a down jacket and some warm gloves. Not best weather for buskers, admittedly, running on hot soup. Tell me, is that man who pretends to be, and of course that's very Portuguese, running on hot soup, but is that man who acts as the former king of Portugal still doing his performance piece on the Prasa there, Kathleen? Amazing character who I spoke to in French, actually. There's another thing. If you're struggling with English in Portugal, sometimes in Central, you can revert to French, as we did with the former king of Portugal, who was reincarnated for the purposes of entertainment in Alcobaça. Real character. Sorry, I didn't know there was a theme. Yeah, ask anything about Portugal as a theme on a Wednesday. Hello from California. I think we're really behind in the comments. Bear with us here, Andy. Is there an equivalent ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act? Excellent question. Or any group working to get public places to accommodate wheelchairs and other types of disability appliances? TP Larson, great question. Over to Andy for that one.
Yeah, so they have some great legislation in Portugal, and sort of an organisation with overriding responsibility. So, for example, new pavements, etc., have to comply with drop curbs and anything new. So it's very similar to most accessibility legislation, but the lack of funds over recent years has meant that it hasn't been as well implemented as it should have been. I am active politically and trying to get involved in the sort of disability space, because there isn't as much political representation or indeed self-representation of people with disabilities as there is in America and the UK. But yes, there is an act and there is an organisation, so there is a focus to deal with it. And it's the European legislation. There's a website which catalogues European legislation on various things, and there's some great explanations in English on there. But again, I haven't got that immediately to hand, so if you can't find it, ask Carl through Expats Portugal, and he can get hold of me if you can't find me directly, and I'll find it for you.
That's tremendous. And yeah, I think that's a really good comment. It's probably not as good as you might have experienced in America or the UK, but they are trying here. And I think that comes from pressure.
Carl, can I say that I think although a lot of the legislation isn't well enforced, the general attitude of people in Portugal to people with disabilities is tremendous. I often find myself embarrassed by being waved to the front of the queue outside shops or in shops having cash desks in supermarkets opened for me when I'm queuing behind maybe two people. So the general attitude is fantastic. So yeah, I think we can do some really good things in Portugal.
Oh, brilliant. Great answer. Thank you very much. Antonio F, going back to East London Kiwi, there should be no problem with English in medical care. English is mandatory as a foreign language from the age of 10, 11 for some 20 years now in Portugal, and most under 50 speak it. Thank you for that, Antonio. Good morning to you. Honor Son, bon dia. What are the prices of homes around Coimbra? Less than Porto and Lisboa. Your research, Andy, what were you seeing property prices in Coimbra?
You can find well, it depends how big you want and what you want, but if you want something budget, 2 bedrooms without much of a garden and no pool, you could probably get away with under 50,000 euros. If you want something with a pool and a garden, 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, you're probably looking at 200,000. But you can find, and whatever your budget is, you will find somewhere around central Portugal. There's some fantastic houses on the market at both ends of the spectrum.
Great answer. And of course, Valerie's here this morning. Valerie's operation does extend into central Portugal. I know she's got some representation in Coimbra, so have a chat with Valerie Spencer Becks about that as well. This is a great area specific question. Any tips on areas in or around Leiria, outskirts, suburbs? Tell us a bit more about the city and where people might have a look there, please, Andy.
Okay. So Leiria's centre has a suburb feeling. It's not a busy, built-up city. Rush hour, you might find a queue of 4 cars at a roundabout. So there is no need to look for suburban living, but it depends again. So in the city, you'll be looking at, we have a large 3-bedroom apartment, which is big enough for our needs. It's a lovely atmosphere. People recognize each other. It's not busy. It's exceptionally quiet at night. There are large houses that we can see from our balcony. So there are large houses and apartments in the city centre. Going further out, so Marizés is our parish, which sort of spreads out from the city centre right out into the countryside, actually. And that's a very popular suburb and is close to the hospital. But you can't beat coming here and looking around. I think it's very difficult to get a feeling of a place without actually being there, really.
Yeah,
I wouldn't buy on the basis of a recommendation without coming to see somewhere.
Yeah, but plenty of scope there by the sound of it for sort of everyone's taste in Leiria. It's often the case in Portugal, but I really enjoyed visiting Leiria. That downtown part from below the castle is really very sort of bohemian. I mean, there's something for everyone, isn't there? And then you walk along the river. To me, it felt a bit like Plymouth. If anyone's got any sort of recollections of Plymouth or Exeter, it's that kind of vibe as well. Really loved the city, and thank you for your reminder about it and its importance for people and expats having a look at Portugal. Carolyn says, loved Hill Street Blues, great show. I think that might be a little spike on YouTube now, looking at old episodes. A question from Gary, obviously here, one of the most important questions of the programme. Villa or City, mate?
Villa all the way.
Fantastic. Carrying on with the Hill Street Blues theme, Joyce Davenport. Stop it, John. In Portugal, it was called, oh, look, they even loved it in Portugal. Balada de Hill Street. Lovely memories for me as well. Oh, not just me. How is the internet in Portugal? I hear it's really good. We've got it here in Portugal, Hank. We do have the internet here in Portugal. Only kidding. Yes, big investment in fibre and ultimately 5G. What's your experience, Andy? Looks like you've got a fairly good connection there.
Yeah, so unlike you, I can sing Vodafone's praises. They were brilliant for us. It was the only service that we had definitely got organised when we started our journey down in the car to our apartment. So we were absolutely certain that Vodafone was going to be live 2 weeks after we moved in. And the only reason that it was 2 weeks was because we hadn't ensured our electricity supply. The really good thing was that the lady, Cisia Barros, who sold us the Vodafone connection, or who was the agent that we ended up getting in touch with through Twitter eventually, remotely, because we couldn't get any reply from ordinary channels. We were put onto her. We organised our Vodafone connection, but when I said we were having difficulty with utilities, she then took it upon herself to help us organise electricity, gas and water and everything else. And she's now set up a sort of concierge company for expats moving into Portugal. But yeah, fantastic.
Oh, we need her details.
I'll probably put it on the business.
Yeah, please do. Gold dust of a person there. Okay, so you've heard about my Moandaphone, Fodaphone, Nodaphone gate situation. All resolved yesterday. My mate Ricardo Coelho, had a chat with him. He gave me his personal email number. Richie Rabbit, the translation of obviously of Ricardo Coelho. Where I am with that, I decided to stay calm. Okay, every time I was getting really wound up by them slapping these massive fines on me for their alleged breach of contract, it served me yesterday to take a breath. And this is what you have to do from time to time in Portugal: is calm down, dear. And what I realized was, in my anger, calma, tranquilo. In my anger, I'd gone to a certain place, and I'd stopped understanding what he was trying to tell me. Now, it's not how I've described it with Vodafone is that they won, but I haven't lost. Okay, so they've allowed me to save some face and some money. And where they were going to hit me with a massive fine, because if you move, this is how I understand it. If you move and you've agreed to a contract with any company, or probably all the utilities and phone companies, you have to in some way hold up your end of the bargain and the contract, even if they can't provide you a service, which seems to me really unfair. But I'm not going to be fighting that out in a Portuguese court anytime soon. So the arrangement we came to, my Mayo is back on. That was resolved yesterday because we had a problem with that. And after talking to Ricardo Coelho at Vodafone, great guy, loved the guy. I can't bear the corporate stance of the company, but I love Portuguese individuals like Ricardo Coelho who tried to help me. And we've paid forward or waived the fine into a future contract. So by not being angry and blasting him in a way that he doesn't deserve and I shouldn't be doing, we came to an arrangement where I'm not going to be fined. I've just had to roll forward a contract for another 2 years with Vodafone. So we're all friends again, and that is good, and I won't be moaning about it anymore. Thank you for that, Andy. Gary says, more busy now than when I was working full time sometimes. It's one of the great kind of ironies of retirement, I think, and being an expat. Thank you, Gary. I fill my days walking, hiking, photography, learning to paint, online social groups, studying the language, gardening, and getting lost time and time again. You see, no problem there with what to do. I think that was Matthew, wasn't it? Hi, Hank. The internet's very good. 100 Mbps on our rural hilltop from Kathleen. It is great, Hank. Thank you, Kathleen. Planning on working remotely part-time when I come, so good internet is a must. Make sure, talk to a neighbour. The companies will promise you, yeah, we can take fibre down any country lane. Make sure from a neighbour that it has actually got there and they can do it. So don't believe the hype, as Public Enemy used to say, probably still do. It's not often we can gloat about the weather here in the UK. All right, Penny, we'll give you that this morning. The entire vaccine programme throughout the EU is proceeding more slowly than everyone had hoped. There's supply issues. There you go, from Kathleen. Will Thompson. Hi, Will. From Zalminyai in Dubai and Surrey, where almost all apartments and villas come with a nanny's room inside. In Lisboa, there is often a room for the help. as we call it in England, us posh people anyway. And she is planning to move next year with their triplets. They want to take their nanny along, wants to know if there are any such properties available which have a small staff room in a villa. I told her it's unlikely in Europe. I think that is not true. There's part of Portuguese culture, I think, to have live-in domestic help in some of the older buildings. And in the new builds, you know, the T4s and 5s, you're going to be fine with that, I would have thought. Have you got a room for your nanny, Andy?
Well, we've got space if we had one. But I guess what you're describing is a small ensuite arrangement. But yeah, Carl's right. There are villas with almost sort of granny flats or buildings that could be granny flats, as we would call them in the UK. And there are huge properties. So it all depends. If you can be flexible, you'll find somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine, or that person, your friend, will be fine. Asking for a friend there. I agree. Many people wonder how they ever got work done before they're retired with all they do in retirement. Much to do in Portugal. Farragudo is the best for retirement, says Eric. Oh, that's controversial. Good morning, Lorraine, here. Will's mum from a very cold... Oh, hi, Lorraine. Lovely to have you here. From a very cold, icy Stirlingshire, Scotland. Good morning to you. Bon dia from Portugal. Indoors with people with no masks or ventilation equals death, says Hank. Thanks for that, Hank. Yes, it's me, the economist, Carl. Happy to help if you want. These are fascinating times in all non-Eastern economies. Yes, absolutely. So we'll have that chat, I hope, sometime soon, Kathleen. That's brilliant. Last lockdown, all markets and supermarkets were open. Masks, controlled entrances. Thank you, Anna. Really helpful. Caldas de Reina market is outdoors, as a lot of them are. So, yes, more likely to be open. Answering that question. Bon dia de Australia. Good morning from Australia. I hope all are enjoying and adapting well to the new year. Feliz Ano Novo to you, Andrew. Great to see you here this morning. Doreen Reyes, I am rushing. We're nearly at 10 o'clock. Good morning. What over-the-counter meds are not available or expensive that you would suggest one brings with them to Portugal? You know the answer to that, Andy.
We've found varied prices in pharmacies when we're buying over-the-counter stuff. The one area that I found issue with is sort of nutritional supplements. So I like to take, and I'm vegetarian, trying to be vegan. So I like to take non-fish sourced EFAs. I like to take black pepper oil and a couple of other things, and they are very expensive in Portugal if available, and you get slapped with a massive import tax if you get them shipped from outside the EU. So I would stock up on those that you really want. Things like paracetamol are cheap, even Voltarol or Voltarine, if you go to the right chemist, can be got at a reasonable price. But yeah, nutritional supplements I find tend to be expensive.
Good. Thank you for that. Not good that they're expensive, but good that you've got such specialist knowledge on that. We have a whole other show to do then if you're becoming vegan. Is there good access to disabled toilets when out and about? Absolutely, yes, I would say from my point of view. From the expert, what do you say, Andy?
I find every supermarket or large, so even Leroy Merlin, the equivalent of B&Q or whatever you have in the States, and also all of those big shops have toilets which you can go in. Most malls have toilets. So yeah, I haven't had an issue. I do have that issue in the UK, I'm afraid. So yeah, I don't have that issue in Portugal.
Great to hear. There you go, Louise. I have a US accredited certified service dog and rely on him to get around safely. That's very interesting, Carmen. I've been booted out of businesses by security several times here on the island. I have much to learn. And so do they, by the sound of it. I'm sure you're re-educating them. And I'm guessing you probably need some sort of translated, not that you should have to do this, but I guess needs must in these sorts of situations that people perhaps need to learn what that's all about and why you need your dog there. So keep us informed of that, Catherine. Sorry, Carmen, going to Catherine now. I've been told there's been a big increase in Brexit applying for visas in Portugal. I'm sure that's true. I heard the other day in Ireland that the waiting times for people wanting the Republic of Ireland citizenship, the waiting list has gone up 6 months. with Brits trying to become Irish, as it were, in that situation. So, yeah, you're going to be finding that for sure, Catherine. But again, keep your chin up. We're here for you to see you through this adventure and journey. How is it living in central Portugal with homes with an EFC rating of E or F? Is this doable? It is the natural Portuguese way of life, isn't it, Andy? E or F?
Well, yeah. With temperatures like this, it means you wrap up a bit, but yeah, most of the time it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, just puts more layers on. Portuguese people would laugh at how pathetic some of us, the rest of us, are coming from the rest of the world with our need for heating and stuff like that. Will, how can I volunteer at hospitals? Sounds like they might need a little help. I could do CPR or clean up diarrhea even, says Will. I mean, what have you found here, Andy? I mean, can you just rock up at a hospital and volunteer? I wouldn't have thought so.
I have no experience of that. Certainly, I've got friends who volunteered at hospitals in the UK, but it's not something I'm familiar with at the moment. I'm afraid.
All right, okay. Don't ask that. I don't know what I shouldn't have asked and probably already have. From Peggy, up the villa, says John. Please, okay, everybody, we will do this again next Wednesday. I'm gonna have to ask you to stop asking questions now, but you know what I mean, I'm such a soft touch. I'll keep asking them if you keep putting them in the comments, but hold up, we will do this again next Wednesday. We will have Andy back, I hope. Anyone familiar with Time Out in Caixa de Sodré? Are they still open? Love that eatery, so diverse with many food options. Of all the places in Lisboa and in Portugal, they will struggle to stop Time Out opening, essential as it is to tourism. If they have to shut, they will, but I think they will do all they can to stay open there. Amazing place, absolutely. Okay, let's see now. In the UK, you can check internet by postcode. Any such websites in Portugal? I'll leave that to Anna, I think, who will know the answer. Do you know the answer to that, Andy?
I found one. Don't ask me what it's called. I found it by Googling internet in Portugal or broadband in Portugal, and it gave me a map not by postcode but by map. So you bring up your map and you could get the bandwidth by supplier. So it was very good. It's why I chose Vodafone. They weren't going to be my first choice, being a multinational company, but there we are. They are the best area. Yeah, they are the best in my area. So yeah.
Okay, so, and also, of course, if you go visiting sites, you can get an app, can't you, for measuring the speed of the internet in any particular place. So I know some of the more sort of fussy internet consumers will be wanting that, but it is governed, as Andy says there, by who's providing it in the area, and not all of them do. My supplements ran out while I was in Portugal. Shocked at the cost. There you go, backing up Andy's comment there about supplements here. Thank you from Baltimore, says Jimmy White. Good morning to you, Jimmy. Anyone, where can we buy aaap tea bags in Portugal? Saliro, I would have thought, at the Coimbra Forum.
I would think so. I've seen I'm trying to think where I've seen a fairly good range of tea. Our Intermarché has quite a good range of tea, and one of our health shops also has quite a good range of tea. Whether there are aaap tea bags, I couldn't tell.
That's very specialist, Kathleen, but maybe that's what economists drink. Aaap tea in loose leaves in the pot whilst they're considering the economic challenges of the world. And yeah, I think for any entrepreneurs watching, Assam tea bags or Assam tea bags and supplements, there's business in that. Will says, you said needs must. Cool, you're picking up my slogan. You've had a bigger effect on me than you will ever imagine, Will. I haven't thought about getting my accreditation papers translated. Great idea, Carl. Thank you. My pleasure. Aidan's here, everybody. Aidan, is camping a common pastime in Portugal? And is it common to have camping facilities for families along the coast or inland parks? Yes, absolutely. Municipal camping is a big thing in Portugal. Wild camping, no. That they're really clamping down on wild camping, and I think that's a sort of pandemic side effect. Do you go camping at all? Any interest in that, Andy?
Not since my stroke, and not in Portugal. I have seen quite a lot of camper vans parked up in small car parks in Portugal. So I think, yeah, wild camping is being clamped down on, but if you have a camper van, you can pretty much park it where you want, and as long as you're not going to cause an antisocial mess, you wouldn't have any.
But there's a really big tradition of the campismo and municipal camp parks that are often in really what in another country would be prime real estate. You will find a municipal campsite with lovely facilities and Portuguese people going there, and you won't be sort of too much of a tourist, because it's what I think is what the Portuguese have loved to do for decades. Now there you go. Will, volunteer at hospitals, contact Cruz Vermelha, Red Cross Portuguesa. There you go. Will, you can find a way in via the Red Cross in Portugal. Nice to see you all, friends. Have a great day, says Hank. Even Hank's got to go now. Probably finished on the treadmill. Time Out Market closed temporarily. That's really sad to hear, but there you go, Kathleen. Mum, if you're still watching, hope you enjoyed the show. Call me after. Our pleasure, Will. Personal messages to mums, always allowed here. Ever is wonderful. Going back to that, not the very busy, packed expat community here, but after a year, I'm finding more and more people speak and understand English. But the locals are very friendly and happy to have a festa with anybody. All welcome. That sounds great. Loads to do and see if you like wine, historic sites, lots of lakes for water sports, inland beaches. Yes, Portuguese river beaches, amazing phenomenon. Markets, karting, bike riding, clubs. Here he is, the unofficial ambassador of Alentejo. Motorcycle clubs, gym, bars, restaurants. They've got it all, basically, there. So singing the praises of the Alentejo and the Évora specifically there with Neil. Rules on caravans changed a few days ago. Can't stay overnight in street parkings. But I'm sure Lidl, the refuge of many a motorhomer, yes, Lidl are very well disposed to, and Aldi, for people parking. There must be a kind of, German thing, I think, as well. So it's an unwritten rule and code that motorhome people go to Lidl and sometimes stay overnight. Thanks, both of you. Lots of absolutely. Andy, you've been amazing. I hope you will come back. So finally, with Will's excellent comments as usual, he's been talking about vitamin C, vitamin D, ivermectin, so coming in, could have been a really good cure, seems to be overlooked. What's your sort of general view, specifically sort of focusing it more from the general to the specific on how we can look after ourselves and our nearest and dearest? Because a lot of people feel on the back foot, don't they, Andy? Like, do this, do that. How can we feel more empowered health-wise? And, is what Will's been saying, would you add to this? Take the C, take the D, get the zinc, get in the sunshine. Obviously follow the lockdown restrictions. Over to you, Andy, for a final kind of summation on that, if you will, if you don't mind.
Certainly. So very quickly, supplementing, I'm a great fan of. There's a great study that was done a couple of decades ago now that showed the decline in vitamins and minerals in supermarket bought fruit and vegetables. So even if you're eating lots of fruit and vegetables, you're not guaranteed to get the minerals and vitamins you need. So absolutely supplement up to the recommended daily intake. Get out or exercise, even if you can't get out. Make sure that you're minimizing close contact with people outside your circle, because there is no doubt this is an airborne disease. Keep yourself mentally well. So if you recognize that you're needing support, make sure you phone a friend.
That's really great, Andy, and I'm sure we can come back to this. It's really important to me that all members of this community feel heard, and I think it's difficult, generally speaking, to come in from the fringe, if you like, or I mean, that's how it's characterized with the narrative. And now is not the time, I think, at 8 minutes past 10, but I suspect you're the sort of man who would be open to a conversation, a broader conversation that might reach a little bit beyond the sort of more general narrative. And I hope you'll come back and we might be able to have that some other time.
I would be more than happy to, Carl.
Oh, you've been amazing this morning. My favourite campsite, just finally here from colleague Jerry at Expats Portugal. My favourite campsite is the Sheraton Lisbon. And all the surfers in Nazaré seem to live in camper vans. A ban will come as a shock to them. It's true, Kathleen, that there is a bit of a sort of, a government problem in how to manage Nazaré. It's a clashing of cultures there, isn't it? But that's got to be a top comment there. If you're thinking of camping, try the Sheraton in Lisbon. Thank you, and good morning to you, Jerry. Andy, you have been amazing. Thank you for being such a mine of information, for being so forthcoming and giving of your journey, of your love of Leiria, obviously. And look at this. What a lovely chap Andy is, even if he is a Villa fan. Would love to do a chat with Dr. Thompson live. Promise I'll be professional. I think Will's ahead of me there. So it's the two Thompsons. It will be a full-on Thompson.
Will takes the P. Why?
Very good. We could call it the Thompson twins. Maybe 80s reference there. And I'm with Jerry at the Sheraton there. Fantastic. Thanks again, Andy. Been amazing. Great to meet you on screen like this. And go well. And likewise to everybody else. Bom dia, ciao ciao, logo, beijinhos, abraços. What's your favorite goodbye of the 200 ways to say goodbye in Portuguese, Andy?
Oh, ciao, I guess.
Straightforward.
It's a good international ciao.
All right. We'll see you in the morning with Places and Spaces. We're likely to go to Madeira tomorrow because we have a lovely offer from somebody who's spending 4 months in Madeira. And we'll talk more about Madeira, which was our short. Go to our YouTube channel to watch that. Madeira in less than 60 seconds. I tried to do it. Thanks again, Andy. Take care. Bye for now.